I am. All right, so welcome. My name is Sarah, and I'm an endurance rider. And tonight I'm going to tell you what you should be looking for if you are shopping for a GPS watch. And this is something I've actually used a GPS watch for many, many years. And it's something I get asked a lot of questions about. So I wanted to I'm doing a live webinar right now, but I'm also going to be putting this on YouTube later. So I'm going to have some links in that if you guys want to go and look at the actual products that I'm looking at here. But the reason why I had to do this was because I had my favorite watch, which I've been using for over 4 years now. It took an unexpected trip through the washer and the dryer, and it ended up in two pieces. And the main piece here will not turn on anymore. So 4 years apparently was the lifespan for that. I mean, it is waterproof, but it's probably not dryer proof. And I think my spouse gets off the hook for doing laundry for future laundry chores. So I see we've got somebody joining us as well. I'm just going to keep, is it Noel or Noel? I'm going to keep you muted and that for now because I'm recording. I'm going to post this up later too, but I wanted to let you know if you have any questions, just post it in the chat box and I'll make sure that I address it as we go as well. So because I was actually personally shopping for a watch, I thought it would be a really good time to put all my thoughts and my process of how I actually go and shop and what I'm looking for in a GPS watch into one place so that everybody who comes and asks me, I can just show them this. And it's a lot more help than me going back and forth and answering their questions as well. So for me personally, as I said, this is the one that I was using before. It was the Garmin Fenix 3 HR, which means heart rate because it had the little heart rate monitor back here. And I really love this watch. It's really sad that I had to replace it because I've been using Garmin for so many years. Um, I immediately wanted to use Garmin again. I really love them. They don't sponsor me or anything. This is not a sponsored video or seminar. It's just what I'm comfortable with. And I have friends who use Sunto as well, and I know that they're very happy with that. I think Polar does some good ones as well, but I think they're more towards the heart rate monitor. Um, so I'm going to be speaking my personal experience with Garmin, but there are plenty of other options out there as well to look into. You don't have to go with the Garmin brand. As I said, I've had good experience with them, and because I'm comfortable with them, that's the ones that we're going to look at today. But as I said, any of the little points that I make, you can apply that to any brand that you have on the market as well. So one of the first things I wanted to say was why I prefer the watch over just tracking on something free like my phone. I mean, the phone is good. They have lots of different features. There's a ton of free apps that you can use out there to track your rides, track your runs, everything like that. But I've always found the watch to be superior. And if you do really ride a lot and you want the statistics, I find that the investment in a watch, as I said, mine lasted 4 years until it met an end with the washer dryer combo. I feel like over the course of that period of time, you're going to get your value as long as you've picked something that's, going to serve your needs well. So that's why we wanted to talk about what's going to serve your needs. So for me, the watch, some of the reasons why I would pick the watch over using the phone is I don't have to keep taking my phone out, right? So when you're riding, you're going to have your hands full of reins, especially if your horse is, fresh at the start of an endurance ride or something. So you don't want to be taking your phone out all the time and checking what your distance is. So because I like to know how far along in the loop I am, maybe somebody's told you there's a water trough at 5 miles or something, and you're kind of wondering, how close am I to the water trough or something? You're trying to gauge your pace. You're trying to gauge where you are. Or maybe, you're trying to tell your crew a time that you're expected to be in at a checkpoint or something like that. I find the watch is better for this because you don't, as I said, you don't have to actually physically take the phone out to check it. Now there are apps that will actually tell you along the way. It'll tell you, 5 kilometers, 10 kilometers, whatever it is that you have it set for. So that's an option as well too. But me personally, I've always ridden with a watch, so I prefer to look at it when I want to know it rather than have it blurt out something as I'm riding. The other thing that I like about the watch too is I like to save my phone's battery because I never like my phone never seems to last a full day. I'm always taking pictures with it. I'm taking videos with it. I enjoy doing all those social sharing, of course, on my Instagram and my Facebook. So I mean, I kind of like to save the battery for those fun things, but then I also want to make sure I have just a little bit of battery left in case I get into a trouble spot and I need to call. So when you're running the GPS, that can actually run down the phone battery quite a lot, particularly if the GPS some GPSs will run in the back of your phone. Some of them, the app will actually need to be open to be able to capture it correctly. So that's going to run it down even faster. So having the watch just kind of spares that battery on your phone quite a lot because one, you're not taking it out to use it as much, and two, you're not draining it with the GPS signal. The other downside to the phone is it's not always going to be the most accurate. If you're in a place where there's not a lot of cell phone signal, or you're coming in and out of cell phone signal, most of the cell phones are going to triangulate with the cell towers to be able to pick up your location. So the tracking is not going to be as accurate as something that's actually using the GPS signal. And it's going to continue to track even when you won't have cell phone signal. So this is good for somebody like me. I mean, I ride in a lot of forests, so I get patchy reception on my cell phone quite a lot around here. You wouldn't think so, being so close to the city as I am. But I actually lose cell phone signal quite a lot while I'm riding. But then, and other times when, I went out to Mongolia last year and I just wanted to track it just kind of for fun to see what the distance was we did every day. And there was no cell phone signal for days where we went. So for me, it was, I like looking at the statistics. I liked looking where we were going, and I wouldn't have been able to do that with my cell phone. So that was kind of the three main reasons that I would pick a watch over it. There's a couple of other smaller ones too. But I'm kind of going to get into that as we get into some of the other features as well. Some of the features before I actually go into the websites and share my screen with you that I'm looking for. The number one thing, and you're going to see me, and I'm going to come back to this like a lot of times, is number one is for a rider, not touchscreen. There are so many of these new watches, and they'll be very expensive. And you got the Apple Watch, and you've got a lot of these ones that kind of resemble the Apple Watch that are all touchscreen based. And that works, well for somebody who's sitting in the boardroom and needs to check their messages or something. It doesn't work so well when you're out on trail and you're bumping around, or you're moving up your sleeves or something, you're accidentally touching your watch. Or then when you get into a heavier use situation like an endurance ride, where you are dunking your hands into the water, then it just starts going absolutely crazy because the water will trigger the touch screen, and you'll stop it, you'll start it, you'll change all the settings. It's real mess to deal with. So no matter what, you always want to make sure that you are not getting a touch screen. You want to have physical buttons, and you want to make sure those buttons are not they're not so easy to press that you're going to accidentally bump them and stop your tracking or change the settings or something like that too. So you want it to be just a little bit rugged that way. The next thing I would want to look for is the battery life of it. And this starts when we start to look at what we're going to use it for. And I'm going to get into kind of my own personal one there, but the watches these days, they actually have great battery lives. Most of the ones that I've seen are between 12 and 24 hours of GPS, which is just absolutely incredible, because I remember when I first started shopping for them, like 12 hours would have been like, oh wow, like this is really good watch, and now it's kind of the bare minimum. So it's a really good time to buy watches because there's so much out there, and the features are really good, especially because they've been coming down in price and they still offer a lot of these features too. So another thing that I'm looking for is that I actually prefer that it has the built-in heart rate monitor. So like my old one here, it's got it on the back here. You can kind of see the reflection. It I like having the heart rate monitor. Now this is monitoring my heart rate from my wrist, and I know you can read all sorts of articles that'll tell you it's not as accurate as wearing a chest strap. But honestly, when I'm riding and I'm putting a million things on my horse and a million things on me, like putting a chest strap just to monitor my heart rate, it doesn't, it's just one more thing that I don't want to have to worry about. I don't like the feel of it while I'm riding. It gets sweaty, and I'm riding for hours and hours and hours on end. So I mean, it's one thing if I were to go do it for a quick workout. It's another thing to wear it all day long when it's kind of like a really tight bra strap. The women who are watching this will be nodding their heads. The men, it might be a new concept for them. Um, so yeah, I like having the heart rate monitor on the wrist. And as I said, a lot of them now will actually have the heart rate monitor on it. Even the lower end models will have it. It wasn't the case when I bought this one. This was quite a rare one to get with the heart rate monitor on it. And I didn't think that I would actually need it. I thought that my horse's heart rate would be more important, which it is important too. But I use it for not just riding. I use it for all my exercises. I use it for running, um, and I like being able to see my heart rate. I like being able to see the zones. I've learned about myself that I really enjoy the statistics that come with the watch. So having the heart rate on there was something that I could really measure and see my own fitness improve too. So, I mean, you don't have to have one, but I think if you're considering getting a GPS watch, I don't think you're going to really pay any extra for having the heart rate monitor. And if you're the type of person who wants to use a GPS watch and you like looking at your tracks, and that you're probably going to like looking at your heart rate too. I've also been told that the HiloFit system, which is a horse and rider heart rate monitor, can also connect in with the Garmin's. Now, I haven't done that myself, but I've seen other people do that. So you can actually see your heart rate and your horse's heart rate while you're riding too. So if you are training with that, as I said, this one's going to do your own heart rate, but it would be nice to be able to see your horse's heart rate too if you do heart rate training with your horse. Um, so the next thing I want to look for is a couple of basic sport modes, and we'll kind of go into that a little bit more when I start pulling up some models to look at. Um, and something that I didn't think that I would need when I first got this one as well was the alerts for my text messages. So um, I thought it was going to be a complete waste of my time and that I wouldn't enjoy having it. Turns out I really, really liked it. The last 4 years having that on here, I find I'm actually looking at my phone less because as I'm riding, now I keep my watch on the inside of my wrist. I'm riding, I have my hands like this, and I get hear buzz, buzz. Somebody's calling me or texting me. And then I just do a quick little turn like this. I can see who it is, who's calling me or texting me, and maybe a little bit of the message. And I can decide whether or not it's important enough for me to stop my ride or if it's something that I can deal with later. So I don't have to take out my phone each time somebody's trying to get in contact with me, but I can, and I find I can better manage my clients and my work while still being able to enjoy the saddle and prioritize the messages. And then the last thing that I have on here, which is actually other than the not touchscreen, is the other biggest thing is price. As I mentioned, there are a lot on the market right now. There's a lot to pick from, and price is obviously going to play a huge factor. And the price ranges, I didn't even realize how different they are now from when I first shopped. Because when I first shopped and I bought this guy, it was, you had maybe 3 or 4 models to pick from. Now you have 20 models or more within just the Garmin range, and then you start looking at other brands too, and they're ranging everywhere from under $200 to over $1,000. So I mean, price plays a big difference. Plays a big role in this, right? So I think what I wanted to do the seminar is too is how do we get the best bang for our buck as a rider, because there's a lot of really cool features that you get with the higher end watches, but are they worth the money? That's going to be up to your own discretion. but most of them we're probably not even going to use as a rider. So with that, I think I'm going to switch over to my screen. If you can bear with me for just a moment. So you should now see my screen, and I'm going to pull up a web browser here. So when I am shopping, the first place I always look is generally the manufacturer website. So for here, I'm just going to Google Garmin and go to the Garmin Canada website because I'm here in Canada. So I want to see, obviously, prices in my local currency. And we've got, everything here. I'm going to go into wearables. I mean, most of these, there are so many options, and it's like really, really intimidating when you see like how many things there are on the menu here. But for the most part, they're all taking you to the exact same thing, because these watches are all multi-sport watches. So wearables and sports and fitness, they're going to take you to the exact same thing. So don't be too intimidated by the huge list of that here. But I'm going to go into wearables. I'm going to go to all wearables and smartwatches. And it's going to get me to all these different series here. And the reason why I like going to the manufacturer's site is because they have you can change your selections on the side here for the various features that you want. If there are certain features that you cannot live without, some of them are here. Not all of them are here. Yeah, especially as riders, they're not expecting that riders are going to be their biggest market, I'm sure. We're a little bit more niche, so they're not going to be putting ones that maybe we're looking for. But you can kind of start whittling it down a little bit here. So if we're looking at these, this is shop by activity, and obviously we don't see riding on there. But they also have some of the features down here lower on here. So they've got like the Garmin Pay. So maybe you don't want to carry your wallet. This is something I don't have any experience with yet, because as I said, I was using an older model. But the Garmin Pay is, you tap your watch and pay for your groceries or whatever it is that you're buying when you're on the run. Smart notifications, that's what they call when you're getting your text messages and all that put to your phone. So I'm going to check on that, because I know I really liked that. And I want to make sure that I get another watch with that. I'm going to go down. I want the wrist-based heart rate, because as I said, I'm not one. I don't want to wear the strap. So we're starting to nail, we got it down from 58 to 52. And then they have here too Connect IQ apps, which means you can download additional apps beyond just the, usually when you get them, it comes with, running, cycling, maybe swimming. They'll have a couple of different, what they call apps, which would be your sports, or sometimes other things too, like stopwatches. I had one that was like a motivational quote of the day and things like that, just like little things you could download to put on your watch. So I didn't think that was as important. I'm going to leave that one off. Music storage on the watch. It's another cool feature that it's came out since I first bought my watch. If you don't want to carry your phone for listening to music and you do a lot of running, you can actually store it on the watch, up to however many songs, depending on the model. Not something that I'm finding as important for riding, so I'm not going to click that one. Pulse ox, I don't find that, I think that's too advanced for what I'm looking for, because I really just wanted to track my distances and my elevations and that. And the solar charging, I know that is a very expensive feature, so I'm not going to click it, because I'm going to rule out a lot of good watches that are at the lower price point. And I have heard some feedback that the solar charging isn't really worth the money that it is. I believe it's some sort of special face that they have on the watch that will take in and charge while you're using it. But it charges very, very slow. So I think it's kind of, this is the first that I've seen any of this solar charging. I think it's probably needs a couple of years before they really perfect it. So it's probably not worth the money right now. I mean, for the most part, you're better off just carrying one of those, you know, little charging sticks or something, and charging on the go. And that's what I did during my 100 a couple of weeks ago. I knew that I wouldn't have the watch battery last the entire 100 because I knew I was going to be close to 24 hours of riding. So when I was on my hold, I was just plugging it into a little portable charger, and that did me just fine. So, and I mean, you can get those things for, you know, anywhere from 20 to $100, depending on how intense you want to go. So then for me, so I've narrowed it down, you know, marginally, as I said, down to 52 series. I wish that they had a few more places to sort and compare, um, but so there's not as many filters as I would like to see on their website. So I kind of go in and I spend a lot of time looking at the specs manually, but what I'm going to do, because for me, I've actually just bought my first house and I am on a very strict budget. So I am not allowed to spend very much money on this watch. So I'm going to do the prices from low to high, um, give that some time to load. And we'll take a look at kind of these cheaper watches, and then we'll go down a little bit more too, and see what we've got. And well, I must have done something wrong because the one that I actually bought isn't listed on here. See if I take off one of these. So I would like to actually show you the one that I did end up buying, or maybe it's a slightly older model that's not showing up on their website right now. So when I'm looking at this, as I said, I'm on a budget. I know kind of what I can spend, what I want, and this is going to be totally personal for everybody here. I know I'm going to have to make some concessions because I don't have the budget for the watch that I really, really want. So for me, it was a lot of what am I going to do for the next year or 2 years? Um, and what watch is going to fit into those 2 years before I'm ready to buy a new one. So for me, I want to go low budget, meet the minimum, but it's not going to be my end goal watch, really. It's going to be the one that's kind of going to get me through until I have some of my house debt paid off and we've, you know, replaced the windows and done all those things on the to-do list. And then maybe I can buy a slightly better watch. So for me, the concessions that I decided to make is a little bit on durability. As I said, I'm expecting I'm going to have to replace it in another year or two. So there are a couple of different options, and I'll show you when we get in there. There's a couple of different durability things that I'm looking out for that I'm going to make the concession for, but I'll show you the more expensive ones that I'm looking for as well. I'm also making a concession on battery life. Um, as I said, my last ride, it came close to 24 hours and my watch wasn't quite prepared to handle that. I think it does 20 hours on one charge, and that was when it was brand new. So it's probably more like 18 now. So, I mean, I would love to have a 24-hour battery life, but I know also because if I can't afford to buy this watch right now, I'm also not going to be able to afford to do a lot of competing next year, which means I probably won't be doing another 100-mile race. I'll probably be doing kind of little daily rides out with students, and maybe do some small competitions myself. But the chances of me being out riding for more than 12 hours, where I'm going to need this longer battery life, are really, really slim for the next 2 years, I think, because I said all that cash is going to be putting into building my house up the way I want it to be. So I can make that concession for battery life because I know I'm not going to be doing a lot there. But as I said, come 2 years ago when we get, a little bit more solid footing underneath us, I may want to reinvest, get a better watch, and something that will last me quite a bit longer so that I can do an entire race on one watch. the things that I haven't been giving up though is the alerts, because I'm still going to get my text messages, and pretty much all of them are going to send you alerts now. And the certain sport modes that I like. And again, I am not buying anything touchscreen because it's not going to work for me. It's completely the wrong type of watch for me. So as I start looking through at these cheaper watches, the first two I see here, these are like your Fitbit trackers here. They've got a really small screen. I'm not really interested in that because I do, you know, I'm riding, I'm not going to be holding my hand right up to my face to see what I'm doing. I want to be able to see my statistics really clear. So I'm going to scroll literally right past these two right here, because I want to be able to see it. This one here may be a possibility. So what I've done is I press control and then I click, and then it's opened it up in another tab here. And that's kind of something I do when I'm online shopping for anything, not even, it doesn't have to be GPS watches. It's just kind of how I narrow things down. I mean, they have this compare feature up here, but I have my own way of doing things. So, you know, I'm going to take a look and do it this way here. So that one, you know, it's a big enough screen, GPS smartwatch with Garmin Pay, wrist-based heart rate. All that sounds pretty good. So I'm going to click on that. This one sounds pretty good too. Garmin 45 they don't give you much information. So, I mean, unless I look at it and I say, ooh, that's really ugly, or ooh, I really can't do that for one reason or another, I'm not going to click on it. These next two here, I can see as I'm looking at the face, we're looking around here, there are no buttons, which means here we are, touchscreen display. I'm going to pass right on to that. And then here we have another one. It's got some buttons, 45S. So that's similar to this one, but it's got an S on it. Don't know what that means, but we'll take a look. This one, rugged, reliable outdoor GPS watch. That sounds pretty good. Let's open that up too. And let's see this Instinct Tactical Edition as well. So let's start with all those. And then I'm going to scroll down to, there's one way down here. Guys, it was very expensive. So I'm going to pull up the one that I really wanted that I obviously didn't buy because it's way out of my price range, but it's one that, you know, maybe if I find a used one down the line, I might come down and find. And then I'm just going to do a search because I know what one I actually did buy. And oh, I gotta move my face here so I can actually search. I got the Forerunner 35. Sorry to spoil the surprise. That's supposed to be fun for the end of the, there we go. So here we go. It's looks like it's in gray. They probably hit it because I don't know if they're still making it right now. So anyway, I have all them here. I'm going to look at that first one I opened up now. So what I'm looking at, first thing I see is I only see one button. So this one might be a combination of touch screen and button. So that's going to be the first thing I'm going to look for, is make sure that it's not a touch screen. So when I scroll down here, I can look through. I don't see the word touchscreen jumping out at me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the specs tab, and that's where I'm going to get the a lot more information that I'm looking for. So here we are, touchscreen, check mark, and I close the tab. It is no longer being considered. And that's why I like opening up the multiple tabs, because for me, it's just like, oh, I found something that eliminates it. I just close it off. And then I don't, you know, I don't invest too much time in it. So here we are, the Forerunner 45, which is $279. This is the retail price. I mean, as I said, I went to the Garmin website. It doesn't look like they have any sales on here, but I'm using this more for specs and to get an idea of what the retail price is. You can always go to other stores, and I do usually end up somewhere like Amazon or Mountain Equipment Co-op or something, because they'll usually give you a better deal than just what's listed off the website. So when I'm looking at this one, I see, okay, we've got multiple buttons, which tells me that, okay, we might not be touchscreen. They got one in red, which I like because that's my racing colors, but let's see what, like, if it's actually going to be held up to spec for me. So we have lens material here is chemically strengthened glass. So when I say that I'm looking for durability, this one here, my old one, it's got 0 scratches on it, even though I am absolutely brutal with destroying my stuff. And I mean, you know, it was doing really, really well up until the washing machine and the dryer incident. It still looks really, really good. The only thing I've had to do with it was I've replaced several bands. But you know, the bands are cheap. I think I get them for like $12 on Amazon. So I mean, I don't mind replacing the bands because I mean, it's cheap and I can have different fun colors whenever I want as well too. So I liked that this one had, I don't know exactly what glass it was, but I know it was one of maybe the Gorilla glasses or something like that. It is a heavier duty watch. And having somebody I know get one of the lower end ones that had this chemically strengthened glass, I do know that it is going to scratch a little bit more because she's had hers for, I don't know, maybe a year. And it is getting some small scratching in it. So I am going to be aware of that. That's not a killer for me because, as I said, I'm expecting mine to only be for about a year or two for me. And then after that, you know, I'll give it to my spouse or something and he can use it for the golf course. But, you know, down the line, I want something a little stronger because I want it to last a long time if I'm going to spend money on it. But I think for $279, it's a little bit, it might be a little expensive, honestly, if I'm expecting it to only be a year or two. So the physical size, that's your millimeters, how big it is. So, you know, it's round, it's 42 millimeters, 4 centimeters. So it's going to be a little smaller than the one that I had right now. As I said, the one that I had previously, there was only a couple options to pick from back in 2016 when I got it. So it was big and it was bulky, and I've got these very tiny, delicate female wrists that I could actually only wear it on the inside of my wrist, because if I tried to wear it with the face on the outside of my wrist, it wouldn't pick up the heart rate monitor, and actually it would hurt the tendons on the side of my wrist because it was so big. So this one's a little smaller, which is nice. You know, I'm gonna hit it on less things. But it's still actually quite a big watch. So you're going to have a bit of a trade-off here. It's going to be a little heavier. It's going to be a little bulkier. You may kind of, you know, hit it on things if you're used to having your wrist close to things. But at the same time, you're going to get this bigger display. So especially if you have maybe some vision issues and that, and you want a nice big display, or you want to put a lot of things on the display, because these things are highly customizable. You can either have, you know, big numbers, or you can divide it up into all these little tiny screens as well. So as I said, if you want that bigger display, I think this is probably a fair size. And as you can see, there's no touch screen here. It doesn't even reference it. And just to be 100% sure, I'm going to press Control F, which is the search feature in my browser, and I'm going to look at touch screen, and it's pulling up 0. So I mean, I'm not missing it anyway. There is this touch or button lock, but that just means that it has a locking key to it. So no touch screen, good. It's still a viable option. And then we go down into the battery life, which, as I said, for me, I'm looking up to 13 hours, and that's in GPS mode. My ideal watch would be 24 or more hours, which is reasonable in higher end watches these days. Smartwatch mode. So this is if you're not doing anything other than wearing it as a watch and getting some text messages. Unless you're crazy famous and getting a whole bunch of text messages, this one should be 7 days. So, I mean, 7 days, if you're relatively inactive, it's just going to tell you the time, and it's going to tell you your heart rate monitor, and maybe tell you how many hours you slept. just like your Fitbit would have. And then once you do the GPS, that would be, as I said, your per ride time. So if you know that you're not going to be riding more than 13 hours today, or any day for the next foreseeable future, this would be perfectly fine. Now, I mean, 13 hours, as I said, it's gonna come down over time. I think 13 hours, when they put it on here, it's generally pretty generous. So I'd maybe knock that down to 12. But I mean, if you're just starting out to do endurance or any sort of distance riding, a 50-mile race, you're only going to be permitted to do that in 12 hours anyway. So unless you're planning on getting into any of the bigger rides, this would do just fine. 13 hours should be just fine. And then of course we have a water rating too, because we're going to be dunking our hands in those water buckets, and we're going to be sponging off our horses. So we want to make sure that it's at least a little bit waterproof, that it's not going to go berserk. It doesn't have to go through the laundry, but it does have to go through a little bit of a dunking with an endurance rider, and any horse person really. So the next one we had on here beside it was the 45S. So I mean, they have all these kind of other little models within the model. So I'm curious to see what this S means. And maybe, here we go. So the 45S is a smaller size GPS running watch. So I would expect, if I looked at the specs here we go. It's 39.5 by 39.5 versus 42 by 42. So, I mean, it's only an extra 2.5 millimeters smaller in diameter. But I mean, that's pretty good. As I said, if you're kind of delicate, you've got delicate hands and wrists like me, it might actually make quite a bit of difference. You might not catch it on as many things, or clink it on things as you're passing. For me, it's always, I'm sitting watching TV trying to eat popcorn out of the bowl, and I have a metal bowl, and I keep clinking it on the popcorn. Well, I can't eat popcorn with my watch on. It's the funniest thing. So yeah, this S1 might is probably marketed more towards women, and you can see they've got the purple and the white, which are more feminine colors. And then the red, it looks like the red's only available in the larger one too, right? So if you're looking to buy certain colors, oh, didn't mean to drop that, sorry. Yeah, you may have to, if you want the red, like I would want the red, you may have to get a slightly larger one. But I mean, standard black, if black goes with pretty much everything, right? So there we go. That's the difference between our 45 and 45S. S for small, I suppose. I'm going to just close these because I think we've kind of talked all the way through those of what we're looking for. So let me just see if there was anything else I wanted to look at here. I mean, they all have heart rate monitors, so we can all see the wrist-based heart rate monitor here. And it'll give you all that. I mean, there's so many different features on here that the majority of us are not even ever going to look at or care about. Maybe you do want to know your sleep. Maybe, maybe you do want stress tracking. This body battery energy monitor, I read up a little bit on that. It's basically telling you when you need to eat and sleep. I mean, it sounds very, very scientific, but at the same time, I'm pretty good about reading my body. If I'm hungry, I eat. If I'm tired, I sleep. I don't really need my watch to tell me that. So I guess it's, just kind of one of those things. Menstrual cycle, there's all sorts of apps and calendars. You don't really need your watch to do that. They've put a lot in here to make it enticing for many people. But there's so many features, as I said, that you don't need to go. Now, this is one of the cheaper ones. So, I mean, it's not like you're paying extra for some of these things. They just come in with the app anyway. Find My Phone is a good one. If you are like me and you keep your phone on silent, it's a good thing to have. It basically, it'll let you know. It kind of, it's like a hot and cold. It'll tell you warmer, colder. Weather is kind of a good one to have when riding. So it's kind of, yeah, it's good. It's got that. So trying to see if there's any other ones that we would be particularly interested in. Step counter. I like a step counter. It does make me feel pretty good. It's got the move bar. So if I've been sitting around binging on Netflix and I've been sitting for, I think it's more than 45 minutes, it'll tell me that I have to get up and move. The funny thing is it's not particularly smart no matter which watch you get. There was one day 2 years ago, I ran a marathon. And then when I was sitting resting afterwards, it went buzz, buzz, move. And oh man, was I ever pissed at the watch. I said, it's like, I just did, 60,000 steps. You're really going to make me move again. So, I mean, the move bar is kind of fun. If, you're in the office or something and you have a tendency to forget to move, you've been on your computer for too long. But the step counter and the move bar aren't going to be your only metrics of health too, right? Calories burned, I kind of take that with a grain of salt. I mean, it does use your heart rate to try to calculate it. But I know how many calories I eat and how many it says that I burn. And my weight doesn't fluctuate very much. So I think it really, really underestimates how many calories I burn on a daily basis. It is good for calories burned during an activity. So you could say, okay, well, I ran this far, it burned 300 calories. But my daily total never seems to be what I actually eat. And so I kind of, so I take that calories burned with a grain of salt. And, as I said, I eat when I'm hungry and I sleep when I'm tired. The intensity minutes is kind of fun too, because, you get a lot of these health organizations that say, do 30 minutes a day or 150 minutes per week and that too. So it keeps track of that. So it's kind of fun to see how your week is adding up and making sure that you're getting those bare minimums. Or if you're like me, you're just like want to outdo week by week. And I think this week I had like 1,099 intensity minutes or something like that. So it's just kind of one of those motivational games that I play with myself. So it's good that it has that too. Gym and fitness equipment. I don't really know why we need to have this in a watch. We've got trainers, we've got books, we've got online resources, and that most of the time in the gym we're going to have our phone on us anyway. So I don't see any need to have that on the watch, but it is there if you need it. And then there's all these training and planning things, which said it's probably more advanced than most of us need. The important thing is we want this GPS speed and distance right here, as opposed to the wireless triangulation, such as you'd get with like an Apple Watch or a Fitbit that's using your phone as a GPS, as opposed to the actual device itself. So obviously it's Garmin, they're all going to have the GPS speed and distance, but they list that there, of course, too. And then I don't think any of these other ones are really worth talking about as a rider. It's got running features, it's got cycling features. So when you're cross training, you've got kind of specific profiles, and profiles would be the different watch faces and the different values that it's going to show you based on the activity. Because so maybe you want to know how many steps you did during a run, but obviously it doesn't apply to biking or things like that. So you can customize them, but I'm going to leave those aside for now. So anyway, yeah, I meant to close this one and then I went real deep in there. Hopefully some of you found that helpful. And then this one, we're just getting a little bit more expensive here. Again, I'm going to go look at the specs real quick. Chemically strengthened glass, but it looks like they've got a little bit higher end bezel, which is the part around here, and then the case, which is outside of that as well. So it looks like the lens is about the same as the cheaper one, but it's a little bit stronger out there. So you may think the $20 is probably worth investing that little bit of extra to get a slightly more durable watch, particularly as our sport is pretty demanding. But then also we're looking at the physical size. It's quite a bit bigger than the other one. So you're looking at another 3 millimeters in diameter, which is it's gonna put it as about the same size as this one. So you can see, compared to my hand, the watch takes up basically my entire wrist. So that's going to be the same size as that one. So it's going to be suited more for people with larger wrists or who are plenty comfortable with having a bulkier watch on them. One thing I should mention too is with my previous one, I didn't sleep in it. I thought it was too bulky to sleep in. I wasn't comfortable sleeping in it. It was, good time for it to charge too. And I also didn't shower in it because I found it too big and uncomfortable for doing that. So if you are thinking about getting a bigger one, even though this is more durable, you're gonna you may not want to use it for all of your activities. And that starts to divide the line between, do you want this as a daily tracker, or do you want this for like a purpose activity such as your riding? And that's where that size versus durability is going to start to come into play. You can see the weight is also quite a bit heavier too, but if we look down at the battery life, we've got up to 16 hours now. So, I mean, that's for an extra $20. And if you can deal with the size, that is actually a really good GPS watch for a lot of people. So it's not going to get you through a 100-mile race unless, you're super fast or it's a nice flat course or something. But 16 hours is, I think, a very reasonable middle ground. And as I said, you're only paying an extra $20 for that. And then this Ultra Chat Track, which I believe what it does is it uses fewer data points. So it says up to 40 hours. I wouldn't use anything with lower data points for an endurance ride around here. Because for us, we have a lot of looping in the forest, and we have a lot of crossovers and switchbacks and that. So you're gonna have, because it's only taking point, if it takes it every second, you're gonna have a lot more accurate data than if it takes it every 20 seconds, where you actually might lose mileage. So an example would be, for us, we have set speed here in Ontario, and you have a maximum speed and a minimum speed, which also means you have a maximum and a minimum time. So if your GPS isn't calculating correctly because you aren't getting as many data points, say the ride is 12 miles and you're at 11 miles and you're like, okay, like I'm close to home and I'm running a little fast, so I'm going to slow down. But then all of a sudden, you're like, oh wait, there's the finish line right there. So maybe you have like 20 minutes and you can't cross before your minimum time. So then you have to stand at the finish line looking a little foolish because you didn't pace yourself correctly because you were relying on your watch data. And then your horse is like, I'm almost home. Why can't I go, join my friends or eat my grain or any of that kind of stuff, right? So, I mean, the difference of the tracking in a regular mode versus kind of these like fewer data point modes can make a really big difference. Now, maybe if you're doing a point to point where it's relatively straight, you could probably get away with this, but you're gonna, for the most part, when you're having these kind of windy courses, you're gonna want that full GPS mode. And as I said, 16 hours, you get an extra 3 hours for $20. That's probably, I'd spend the $20 on that. And then here we've got a water rating, and the water rating was a little bit better too. So you can dunk your hand a little deeper into that bucket if you want. So yeah, as I said, you got to find that balance of what in particular you're looking for. So, is the size going to be an issue for you? Or would you rather have that extra battery life? Or, do you want more sports mode? Do you want to be more durable? And that's kind of where you have to start picking and choosing. Then the next one, same one for some reason. Oh, probably because there was different colors, different versions of it. This one's an extra $50. Off the top of my head, let's see where we might find that extra $50 in value. Is it worth it? So it's still 16 hours of GPS. So for me, that's not worth it. Still the same size, not a big difference there. Yeah, I can't find anything in the kind of the general what I'm looking for that would make it worth that. So I mean, click it, close it, not interested. So this was the one that I said if I had all the money to do it, this $819 one, this was kind of the dream one for me. The reason being, as I scroll through, if I look at the specs, this one's got the Gorilla Glass DX. So remember how I said that I know the lower end models tend to scratch a little bit. This is going to be like the really rugged stuff, the same stuff that I had on my previous one. And as I said, my previous one is a Fenix as well, just an older model of it. So I know I really like that. I know I really like that series because it is known to be one of the more durable ones. So then we've got stainless steel, we've got, fiber reinforced polymer. All those are a lot more durable. The strap material, that was one thing that I really liked about my previous one. Remember how I said that I replaced the straps a lot because I found I was always kind of tearing at the silicone. I mean, the silicone was comfortable. It wasn't as durable as the rest of the watch, but these, you can't see it here, but these are actually really easy to replace. It's got these bars through here. So, I mean, as I said, for $12 on Amazon, I could get whatever band I wanted. And there's tons and tons to pick from of various different colors and materials. So you just take that out and replace it. So I mean, the watch is going to last a lot longer because you can replace the parts a lot easier on this one than on some of the less expensive ones. This one too, it's 42 by 42, so it's the same as that Forerunner that we were previously looking at. And then it's got a wrist fit actually. So if you have your wrist measurements, you can measure to make sure it's going to fit on you. I mean, most of these watches are going to fit pretty much everybody, unless like you're a very extreme case. The watch, you can see the watch face. It has a very large face for the size of the actual watch. So, I mean, that's more bang for your buck there. There's definitely no touchscreen on this one. Display type sunlight visible. That's very important too, because obviously we're going to be riding in the sunlight. We want to be able to see it without having to click the light because the light's just going to drain the battery. I mean, if you're on, just a short little ride, it's not going to be a big deal, but it's, again, you got to take your hands off so that you can press the button. And that's kind of defeating the purpose of having the watch, right? And then, so here, this was what I really liked about it was GPS up to 25 hours. So, I mean, whenever I'm ready to do hundreds again, and I've got that in the budget, maybe I spend a little extra money and I get this very expensive watch that will get me through 25 hours. Or maybe for the same price, I get, 4 of a cheaper one and just do it that way. But yeah, 25 hours on GPS mode, up to 50 hours. Like, that's pretty cool. And especially if you're somebody who's going to be traveling somewhere remote where maybe you won't be able to charge it, that's going to be important to you too. And then there's just like other cool things that I know this one has. So when you look at these sensors here, you see a lot more sensors here than we did at the last one. It's got the compass, which I didn't expect that I would use it that much, but I actually did use the compass on mine quite a bit. Not so much when I was riding, but just for kind of just general heading when I was, out camping and things like that too. Just, so you can know where to position, how you wanted to position your tent and that. The thermometer, you have that. I've never found that the thermometer worked very well. when it was on my wrist. It always seemed to register somewhere between the outside temperature and my body temperature. So I'm never quite sure what it was actually trying to measure. But what I would do is I'd take it off overnight, and then I could see how cold it got overnight too. Especially if I was trying to acclimate to a certain temperature for camping. Like, so before Race the Wild Coast, I knew that it was where I would be riding, it would be about 16 degrees overnight. So I made sure to put the watch out, the thermometer, and in the middle of the night, if I was cold, I would check it and I'd say, okay, how many degrees is this? And am I going to need to get myself a better sleeping bag? So kind of a weird use of it, but it did work for me that way. And I was very comfortable in my sleeping bag in Race the Wild Coast. So, you know, it's not, as I said, that's going to be more of those kind of little things that if you're going to be using these for kind of these higher level experiences like that, it might be of value to you, but it's probably not going to be of value to most of us who are just kind of doing a day race. And then I thought there was another one. Um, Maybe this one doesn't have it. Oh no, the barometric. I actually got storm alerts on my watch, which was kind of cool because when I would be out riding, I'd get the storm alert. Like, oh, okay, you know, this is going to be a big one, and I knew to kind of head home or to head in a direction where I knew there was going to be shelter for me too. So I mean, those are a lot of little things, and you know, for $800, is it worth it? It's kind of hard to say. um it depends on how many of these you're actually going to be using, but I know from my experience those are the features that I actually used. I mean, there's so many of these other ones, like it just keeps going forever and ever. It's got all these tactical ones, you know, dual grid coordinates and that. I mean, I'm not, you know, dropping into base camps and stuff like that. I probably don't need all those tactical things. Um, is it fun? Do I maybe want to try it out in skydiving mode? Maybe someday, but I mean, it's probably not the best use of my money. As I said, it just keeps going and going. But from my experience, those are the ones that I would actually use on one of these more expensive watches. So now the one that I actually did buy is this Garmin Forerunner 35. And I don't know why it didn't come up in the search, but I have it right here. You can see it. I got it on Amazon and I just shipped it Prime because I felt very lost without having my watch and my little step counter and all of that. So I wanted it quickly. And I honestly didn't know how quickly they would ship from here. But let me go through the actual specs real quick. So like here, as I said, it's chemically strengthened glass. I know it's only going to be about a year or so that I'm going to use it. GPS mode up to 13 hours. So I mean, the other one we were looking at was 279. This is 199, and it gives me the same battery life. That's ultimately why I got this one instead, because it was the cheapest one that met kind of my minimum standards. And it's really small actually too. You can see it's less than it's that's the display. It's less than any of the other ones that we looked at. I mean, I haven't worn an Apple Watch. I think it's very similar in size to the Apple Watch. It's a square one, which is a little different for me to get used to. But I mean, it's doing the job. I've done I think 3 rides now and a couple of runs with it. And it's, again, the display type sunlight visible. Like, I really appreciated it. When I first looked at it, it had this kind of weird reflective kind of look to it that was very different from the watch I had previously had. But I'm used to it now, and it's actually a lot easier to read than the older watch. So I guess that's, you know, just technology making progress, right? And again, you know, I've got the wrist-based heart rate monitor, so I can do my exercises and I can do all my zone training. It'll tell me my sleep. I did wear it to sleep one day to see if it actually would capture my sleep correctly. It seemed to. And it wasn't uncomfortable to wear to sleep too, which actually was, I quite appreciated that. But I mean, the battery life is a lot lower, so I probably won't wear it to sleep very often. I'll probably just keep plugging it in at the end of each night. And then again, we've got the smart notification. And the neat thing it actually has is my other one didn't have it automatically. I think I would have had to download an app for it. It had the weather, so I can just kind of scroll through here and it will tell me weather. Oh, and it says app connection required. So I mean, I have to connect and open the app on my cell phone. But I mean, if I've got the cell phone app open, I can see what the weather is while I'm wearing my watch, which is kind of important for a rider, actually, especially if you're out on the trails and you want to know if it's going to be turning nasty. When I did use the weather app when it was actually connected, it gave me the hourly forecast. So it gave me 3 hours. So, I mean, that's enough time where I'm riding for me to get home safely if I see that there's, 100% chance of lightning storms coming or something like that. Um, and then again, you have to find my phone. It'll pair with the mobile. And it's got a safety feature of live track, which I haven't used yet, but I'm gonna give it a shot and see if it's something. I believe this is something that if you have an emergency, like I fell off my horse and my spouse can maybe watch me and say, hey, you haven't moved in half an hour. Are you still alive? Give me a call. So I'm curious to see how that one works. But it's neat that it actually specifies that it has it here. So that was the one that I actually decided. So when I actually decided that I wanted that one, I didn't actually buy it through Garmin. And as I said, I find that they put the MSRP on here, but they never really do a lot in the way of sales. So for me, I just went to Amazon. Again, it was because I wanted to make sure that I had it with Prime shipping. And then I just searched Garmin Forerunner 35 because I know it meets my minimums. As I said, I'm not in a place that I can spend the extra, $620 to get the one that I really, really want. But I mean, I can get one that's going to suit my needs for the next little while. When I'm going through, you can see Amazon's got these sponsored ones, and it's like, the bands and all that. Make sure you scroll by those. I always, even though it is going through Amazon, I look for Garmin being the actual seller, because I want to make sure that I'm getting the real deal, not some Chinese knockoff. So, I mean, there's a couple, then there's Amazon Renewed. So I guess that's probably their used ones. If you want to save even a little bit more money, you could probably get it, one of these used ones. But what did I say? When you go to Amazon, look at that. It's on sale where it was $199 on the actual website. It's down to $159 here. So I mean, $40 is $40. I'd take myself out for a nice dinner or something like that with it. Takeout now with COVID, right? It's a little cheaper than going out. It looks like they've got, spend an extra $5 if you want to get a fun color. But if you're happy with just the black, you've just saved yourself, as I said, $40 going through Amazon, and it's going to give me free shipping too. So, I mean, from there, it's as simple as just checking out. One thing I did do though, because I know that it does scratch up. The frequently bought together, they definitely got me on that. So I got one of these screen protectors as well for mine. And it actually came in a set of 3. And I don't know if I'm ever actually going to use 3 or if I'm just going to use the one. And if I'll probably lose the other 2 before I actually need them. And then when I actually need them, I'll have to go buy another set because, that's kind of how I work. But yeah, I got the screen protector too, because, for an extra $12, I know the screen's going to scratch a little bit, particularly because I'm so hard on my stuff. It seemed like an extra little help there for me. So that's kind of all I have for that. I'll go back to the Zoom. There we go. Stuff stop share and see if there's any questions. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions pop up, so I'm going to do my little exit, and then if anything pops up, I'll address it when we get there. So I just wanted to mention I am going to be uploading this to YouTube. So most of you are probably going to be watching this from YouTube later. What you can actually do, I'm going to put in the links a link to both the 35 that I showed you, the one that I bought. That's I'm wearing on my wrist right now. I'm going to give you a link to that in the description, and I'm going to give you a link to the Fenix 6 that that was my dream one, the $800 one as well. So if you're looking for that particular model, you can click through the links. And we do have a question. How do you charge the battery of this Garmin? Adriana, can you tell me, are you referring to my new one or my old one? And while you're answering that, I'm going to run away really quickly and I'm going to bring you both of my chargers. Okay, so the new one is this little clip here. When I take it off, you can see there is, see these 4 little dots here, the metal connectors. It just clips on like that. The other side, they don't even give you wall plugs anymore. It's just a USB plug. And the same thing goes with the Fenix series. You got the USB plug, and then you've got your 4 connector dots, but it's a much more substantial charger where it just kind of locks in like that. And then I find plugging it into the wall will be a lot faster than plugging it into like a phone, into a laptop or that, because you're getting a better power source, so it's going to charge a lot faster there. Yeah, so I think if that's everything, I'm just trying to think if there's anything else. Oh, as I said at the beginning too, I just wanted to mention that there are plenty of different brands and that out there. As I said, I went through Garmin because that's what I'm comfortable with. I use their app, and I knew, because I've been using Garmin for so long, I've got everything in my Garmin Connect app. It's got all my history in that too, and I kind of wanted to keep going with that. But there are so many different options out there now. I see Adriana says she's got a TomTom, which is similar as well. As I said, there's Suunto. I've heard good things about them as well. And if you start looking for the things that I mentioned, that it's not touchscreen, it's going to have a good battery life, you're going to have a heart rate monitor, you're going to have the alerts on it, and that it's going to be durable to the expectations that you're going to have to it. You're going to be you're going to have, you can do whatever brand you like, whatever one you're comfortable with, and I think you're going to enjoy your new watch as well. So with all that, I would like to thank you for watching this, and happy shopping. Good night.